Hey everybody, today we are going to talk about the Social Security cost of living adjustment, whether it's enough for retirees to really keep up with the cost of inflation in 2025, and just in general. So before we dive in, please click subscribe to my channel if you don't already. I cover Social Security very often. I cover personal finance, tax strategies, investments, all kinds of things. So please give me a follow to keep up with all of my content. And please check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. Get the top 10 stocks to buy from the Motley Fool. It's the best way to support this work I'm doing on YouTube. Again, fool.com/Frankel. Please check it out. All right, so I'm going to share my screen really quick. So, is the Social Security cost of living adjustment, or COLA for short, enough? So each year, the Social Security Administration gives Social Security recipients a raise, essentially, as long as there was inflation. So they look at third quarter consumer price index data compared to the same period from the year before, see how much inflation has been, and then adjust Social Security benefits accordingly. In periods of high inflation, this can be much higher than it was in 2025. But based on the 2025 data, beneficiaries received a 2.5% increase, and that started with the payment they receive in this month, in January 2025. So we're going to look and see if this is enough for retirees, if it's going to not help them keep up with inflation as much as it sounds like. So we actually just got our first real data of what this actually did to Social Security benefits. Now, I know this says in the chart December 2024 Social Security average, and there's a good reason for that. So it's a common misconception that this was the 2025 cost of living adjustment. Technically, this went into effect in December 2024. Every year, the cost of living adjustment goes into effect in December. But since Social Security is paid 1 month in arrears, meaning the payment that you get in January was actually December's payment, the payment you get in February was actually January's payment, it's considered the 2025 cost of living adjustment because that's when you're first going to see the money reflected in the payment that you get. So, with that in mind, the overall average Social Security benefit went up by about $46 to $1,834. For retired workers, meaning people who retired, they're claiming benefits based on their work record, $1,975. That's about $50 more than it was previously. The average spousal benefit, if you are, were a stay-at-home parent or something like that, and you're collecting benefits on your spouse's work record, about $931, an increase of about 22. The average survivor's benefit is up to $1,545.57, an increase of about $37. And finally, Social Security disability benefits. This is an SSI. This is Social Security disability insurance is now $1,439.50. And that is an increase of about $35 from the previous level. So the $1,000,000 question, is it enough? So the 2025 cost of living adjustment, and every cost of living adjustment is done this way, was based on comparing the third quarter CPI data, that is July, August, and September, with the same period from the year before, in this case 2023. The average CPI of the third quarter 1 year is compared to the average CPI of the other year, and then the inflation is calculated that way. So that uses a version of the CPI that is known as the CPI-W, which is the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. As that name implies, this is designed to track inflation as it affects working Americans, not necessarily elderly Americans. So there's problem number one. There's another version of the CPI that's more specifically designed for this. It's known as the CPI-E. It actually has a long name, but most people just refer to it as the CPI for the elderly. And it places more emphasis on expenses that impact older Americans. Healthcare is the most obvious example. Older people generally need healthcare services more, and when they do need it, they tend to spend more money on it. Housing costs also disproportionately impact older people. A lot of people don't realize that, but you think older people are more likely to own their home. They need a smaller place than people with a big family. But as a percentage of their income, older people actually spend more money on housing than the general population. So those are just two examples of things that um, disproportionately impact older people. And the reality is that many of the senior heavy expenses are growing significantly faster than the overall inflation rate. This is just from the latest CPI data that I pulled up. Medical care costs grew 3.4% over the past year, a lot more than that 2.5 cost of living adjustment. Shelter costs, which is housing, grew by 4.6% over the past year, about almost double the cost of living adjustment that was just given to retirees. So if here's the kind of the bottom line. If the cost of living adjustment had been based on the CPI-E for 2025, it would have been 3%, not 2.5%. The CPI-E was up by 3% in that third quarter period. Since 1985, and was not an isolated year, is kind of a big takeaway here. The CPI-E has grown faster than the overall CPI for a long time now. Since 1985, the CPI-E has grown by a total of 23 percentage points more than the CPI-W that's used to actually calculate Social Security cost of living adjustments. Now, over time, that can add up. Like you see, for 2025, 0.5% difference is not going to have that big of an impact on most retirees' day-to-day lives. But 23 percentage points certainly would for someone who's been, collecting Social Security for a long time. So take that with as you will. I please leave me any comments you might have. Hopefully, you found that informative. I cover this stuff all the time, so please click subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think. The good news is that there are legislative efforts underway to change the way that cost of living adjustments are calculated. None have any big traction yet, but there are efforts. Congress is aware of the problem. They're aware that costs affecting the elderly are growing faster than overall inflation. So the good news is there are efforts underway to fix this. We will need Social Security reforms sooner rather than later. As it stands, the program's expected to run out of money in about 10 years. So hopefully that will be on the table when it comes time to put together a reform package for Social Security. But leave me any questions you might have on this, the CPI-E, or anything else having to do with cost of living adjustments. I'll do my best to answer any of them individually. Click subscribe to my channel, and thanks so much for listening. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investments. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market more than 5 times. Go to fool.com/Frankel to get your 10 stock picks now. The Motley Fool Stock Advisor returns are 914% as of January 7th, 2025, and are measured against the S&P 500 returns of 174% as of January 7th, 2025.